Methodist churches in Portsmouth started to see slow decline. They saw a decline in membership, they saw decline in ministries, but it so happened that three of them would meet on a regular basis for coffee. Ed Groff, pastor of First United Methodist, and Dylan Stoss, pastor of Wesley United Methodist. Eventually, Richard Thomas, pastor of Franklin Avenue United Methodist, would also join them. And they met weekly for coffee in downtown Portsmouth at Patsy's. So they started to dream and say, what if we had one strong Methodist church in town where we combined all of our resources and our membership, and these times that they would meet for coffee, when they would vision cast, when they would talk with each other, turned into meetings where they started to cast this vision for the merger to a team of lay folks who then went to each church and helped the congregation see what ministries could be done with the merged congregations.
And I remember saying, if we're going to do a merger, then we need to start praying about this. And if our prayers are answered, and it's God's will, the merger will go.
The stories and the way each decided to vote for the merger, they were all unique. For Wesley, they were faced with needing to spend $1 million for building repairs, not upgrades, just repairs, so they could continue using the building. They had a sense that they knew this is where they had to go, that God was leading them in this direction. First Church knew that they couldn't do the ministries that they wanted to do in the space that they had, and their vote was almost unanimous. Finley Street was the only African-American church, and its membership had dwindled down to about 12 people. They were keeping the bills paid, but they were no longer able to support a full-time pastor. So Ed Groff from First Church accepted them as a 2-point charge. Franklin Avenue had a lot of uncertainty if they should merge or not. After a series of town hall meetings and conversations, it came time for the vote. And it really looked like it was going to fail. But there was a point in the evening when there was a lady named Evelyn Helbig. She was in her 90s. I've changed my mind. She said, I have been strongly opposed to the merger, but tonight I'm going to cast my vote in favor of the merger so we can reach the next generation of children who are to come up through Portsmouth. We have to do this to grow our ministry and to reach the next generation. Who knows, because of Evelyn's vote, how many people voted yes that night. And Franklin Avenue ended up passing that vote by 1 vote. After the churches had their yes votes and the merger was going to happen, the bishop appointed all 3 pastors, Richard Thomas, Ed Groff, and Dylan Stoss, as co-pastors to the now merged congregations, which made everyone feel like it wasn't one-sided. People loved this. They were so excited having their own pastor, and they started to feel like they were one church. Over the next 18 months, there were various intentional gatherings that were scheduled. Several times, all the congregations would worship at one of the churches, so each could have a context for worship style. One thing that I think they did really well at in the early days was they got Acts 2. Where it says we are created for fellowship, we're created for koinonia. This time was also used to find property, design a new church building, and develop the leadership structure. The leadership board consisted of 3 people from each congregation. They met weekly with the co-pastors. The other committees were also comprised of members from each congregation. In January 2002, they moved into the Wesley United Methodist Church building and sold the other buildings. Right across the street, they could see the new Cornerstone Church facility being built. In a merger, it's difficult for churches to leave their buildings. And one thing that the leadership strategically did was to bring items from each building. And today there's a bell tower that has the cornerstones from the 4 different merged churches. So it was decided to name the new congregation Cornerstone United Methodist Church. In July 1st, 2003, it was time to move into the new church facility and receive the new pastor, Clark Hess. As the new pastor coming in here in July of 2012, it was definitely a blessing to walk in on the tail end of the last capital campaign and see a payoff of the mortgage.
But then we've got lots of new folks coming and lots of new programs and lots of new activity. So I think that today we're in a very strong position.
And one way that we have reached out is through the Rejoicing in Recovery program. We have a large community of addiction here, and many of those people come to our program, and they are being baptized, they're being saved.
We have food pantry in here that utilizes that big space, and unfortunately you see a big line out when we do that, but we didn't have a space to do. We couldn't have done that in any other of the buildings. We just didn't have the space. We couldn't have pulled that off.
And there will be 800 to 1,000 people in our gym, basketball, cheerleaders, having fun, grandparents sitting about watching their grandkids, parents watching their kids play.
It does say something for Christians that we decided to come together.
It's because of the courage of hundreds of people that we look ahead, and Cornerstone, as we look at the future, believes that we are strategically placed to transform this community and transform Portsmouth.